Hi, this is Andy Reid, and you're watching Alchemicast right here on Alchemical Records, where we focus on musicians around the DMV music area and give them a chance to talk about upcoming releases, recent releases, and how they're doing amidst the COVID epidemic. Now, with me today, I have Fellowcraft, one of the local hard rock bands in the DC area. These guys rock, and they're being nominated for a Whammy in the hard rock musician category. I'm going to lift them into the room in a second here, so hold on to your hats for a whole bunch of stories and anecdotes about what life is on the road, what life was like in Mexico when they were touring there, and how they're doing now with the pandemic. Please welcome Fellowcraft. Hey guys, you guys are live on the air right here at Alchemicast. Can you hear me?
Yes, got you.
Hello, what's up, Fellowcraft? How you guys doing?
Great, Andy. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I feel like we know each other. I feel like I've seen you guys before.
We shared a stage even. Is one of the fun stories that we just recently found out.
Yeah, you guys are one of the most popular bands in the DC area, and this might be a good chance for you to brush your shoulders off. You're being nominated for a Whammy, and you guys have recorded albums and toured to Mexico. You played in DC. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Great. Well, we have the whole band here. We've got our lead singer, lyricist, rhythm guitarist, JR on. We've got our songwriter and lead guitarist, Pablo on. Zach on the drums and Brandon here on the bass. We are a DC band, as you know. We have been around for the better part of 5 years and recently released our latest album 2 Fridays ago. So we're pushing people to Spotify to check it out. And, you know, we've really enjoyed touring around here recently, but not recently. About a year ago is when everything stopped. And, you know, I know we wanted to talk about that a little bit today.
JR, how you doing, man?
Good. A little overworked, but, you know, pretty good.
We got the new band t-shirt on, though. That's good.
There you go. Yeah, you got to rock the merch. How is the band holding up amidst COVID? It's been a crazy time for everyone, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It came out of nowhere, right? We didn't, when it hit, we expected, okay, this will be a couple weeks that we have to just hunker down. But it's, wow, a year later, and we're still doing this. So, you know, we wanted to record a couple months after the pandemic started and decided we had to push it back a little bit more because we couldn't meet up as regularly as we wanted to. So, I mean, we've been trying to get back on track, and now we've been able to do it safely and once a week, and that's about it. And this is pretty much the circle right here that we've built. So, yes, the bubble, yes. So it's been tough. I mean, we've learned just like everybody else how to try to do it right, and we were able to do an album in the middle of it as well. So we're thankful for that.
Yeah, and leading up to it, we about a year ago we played at a festival down in Mexico. Before that, we did a mini East Coast tour that was really exciting. Piling in a couple cars, going to Baltimore, going to Philadelphia. And so I really feel like we ended our pre-quarantine with a bang. But, you know, throughout the course of staying at home and still writing, you know, we still exchanged files with each other and when it was safe, got back together to practice. So we ended up, you know, cutting an album in August that just came out a couple of weeks back.
Right on, yeah. And growing up, you guys are not from the DC area, but you all met each other around the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, right?
That's right. Yeah. We came from a lot of different places, but you know, I think JR is probably best to speak to this because he is the band's founder. He's the reason why we have t-shirts and albums out. So JR, little input on where your thoughts were when you started things up.
I mean, Fellowcraft's been around a long time. I founded the band in the summer of 2014. it was just me and a buddy, like, who wanted to just play music because we were both pretty depressed. Well, I was. He was just trying to like hang out and have fun. And you know, I didn't really think initially that it was going to be a band I wanted it to be, because I like being in bands. And we played a rooftop show. We gave ourselves a name, and then it was kind of like, hey, do you want to be a band? And we found a bassist, and we started playing cover shows. We were just kind of a fun-loving, easygoing cover band. We did that for a couple of years almost, and then Brandon joined. We needed another bassist. He found us on Craigslist through a mutual friend. And right after Brandon joined, we started writing new material.
Shout out to Mary Jo, by the way. Mary Jo Oster.
Mary Jo introduced us, and or introduced Brandon to us. And once we started writing new material, it became kind of a regular face in the scene. That's how I met Pablo. That's how I met Zach. You know, we were all playing shows together. One of our first big shows was with Pablo and Zach. And they were in a different band at the time called 100th No Man. And we, as the band progressed, it came to kind of a natural, like the three of it, the original trio kind of eventually kind of like, I wouldn't say we crumbled out, but I think it just became time where we were like, well, there wasn't much more we were going to be able to do. Our drummer decided to retire, and then Brandon and I were like, well, we can shut it down, or we can start again, find a new drummer. And that's when I kind of thought, you know, I want to do something different. And Pablo and I had become really good friends at the time. Like, we still are, obviously, but at that time, I just wanted to play with him. And I said, hey, would you come session with us? And then I started talking to him about joining, and then he suggested Zach. And within about a month of that, that was at the very beginning of 2019. That was like January through March of 2019. By September, we were playing at one of the largest venues, or one of the biggest venues in Mexico City, in 6 months, you know, and it was a catapult that just started. And ever since we used to get together, every time we get together, the music would get better and better and better. And we go back, like, you know, and play our old stuff. Sounds incredible compared to like where it used to be. And that's not to say that it was bad back in the day. It's just kind of different now in the way that we approach it. So Fellowcraft exists I always like to say, in three distinct iterations. There was like the pre-Brandon cover band area. There was the trio with Brandon and Brian. And then there's Fellowcraft now, which is more of like a progressive rock outfit that has a lot of flavor. And I think this album is a gateway into our next record, which I think is going to blow people away. I hope it does.
Yeah, and Andy, JR mentioned a couple of really, really cool things that happened along through there. Zach and I were literally recently watching recording of us from the now defunct Rock and Roll Hotel back in December of 2016, and looking at each other saying, like, you guys were in a band at the same night that we were, and we didn't know that we would be where we are today. And one of the shows was Plaza Condesa. And Pablo, I wonder if you might talk a little bit about that experience, September of the year before last, because I think for all of us, we called it the anthem of Mexico City, and we felt it there. So I don't know if you might want to talk about that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, ever since before joining Fellowcraft, I've been able to keep tabs with the Mexican rock scene, which is the scene that I used to belong to before moving to DC. And so one of the, let's say, most important connections that we now have there is through a very, very good friend of ours, who is also our producer and the person who produced this album, called Toño Ruiz. He is pretty much one of the best rock producers in Latin America. And because of the friendship that we have together, as soon as I joined Fellowcraft, he was interested. He had kept tabs on me, you know, the other bands that I had in DC. He had previously also helped us with a small EP with 100th No Man with me and Zach back in 2015, I think. And as soon as I joined Fellowcraft, he was interested, and I started sharing with him the music that we were doing. And he said, "That sounds really good. I really like it." And so he basically invited us to open up a show that was going to be the end of the tour show for him and his band in Mexico City. And he just offered the opening slot for us. So we just packed our bags and we flew to Mexico to make that show happen. And it was an unforgettable experience for all of us. and one that also sort of like snowballed into a bigger thing that started giving us a little bit more of momentum in Mexico City. And then from that show, what came was introduction to more people in the scene in Mexico and more bookers in Mexico, and then a second invitation to participate in a metal festival that happened March 14th, 2020. So literally the last weekend, the last day before everything shut down. We were in Mexico playing a festival with Deep Purple, Manowar, Amon Amarth, Static X, Powerwolf, and I don't know, a bunch of other metal bands. And we
You're
also
looking
had
at the show poster up on your wall, aren't you?
I am. It's right here.
I love that.
So that has sort of like grown, and it's allowed us, like, just from that one show and that one invitation that we got from a dear friend of ours, because apparently we did a good job with it, that kind of like has spiraled and snowballed into people getting more interest for us and our music in Mexico. And right now, we could not be happier with the amount of engagement that we've had. Mexico is the number 2 place in the world where we have the most engagement. Currently, we have about 430 monthly listeners in Spotify, out of which I think almost 150 are just from Mexico and the Mexico City area. So we're really happy with that. We've continued to keep tabs with our fan base and our friends in Mexico. We also participated during quarantine, we participated in a virtual festival down in Mexico back in October called the Mexicaos, with a bunch of other amazing rock and metal bands from Mexico, and an incredible band from Austin, Texas. I don't know if you know them, called Fire from the Gods. If you don't know them, I definitely recommend them. And we've also gotten like interviews in the Mexico media and other locations now. Also have an invitation to play another metal fest in Mexico, this time in northern Mexico, called the Mexico Metal Fest, where we'll be sharing the stage with Septic Chaos, At the Gates, and Cradle of Filth, and a bunch of other amazing metal bands. Hopefully, if it doesn't get canceled, in October 29th of this year, if we can all get vaccinated before then.
Yeah, hopefully, right? Wow,
Yeah.
You guys have quite the achievement list. What were some of the emotions that you all were feeling while you were in Mexico? Intensity, right?
Absolutely. I think it was going in front of a crowd that does not know our band at all, does not know our sound. They don't know who we are. Some may know Pablo is, but they don't know who we are at all. So going into a stage fresh, you have like a fresh audience waiting, and they're going to give you feedback about what they think. So the first song you could tell at both their shows, at Plaza and at the Metal Fest, first song they're a little skeptical. They're like, okay, who's this band? By the second song, you kind of see the crowd building, and by the third, fourth song, the crowd kind of built back, and then they were chanting with The Last Great Scotsman, one of our songs that has some chanting in it. Then they were chanting with us and taking pictures and videos. So I think the takeaway was, once they heard us and they kind of got it for our songs and what we can play, or Pablo's solos or Brandon's bass line or whatever, they got pretty attracted, and now they're, like Pablo said, there's quite a few monthly listeners. So it was having that feedback after those shows, I think, was the biggest takeaway. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you can see that in This Is How the World Ends in our music video. There are actual shots of the crowd that kind of amassed in front of the stage, and it's not staged, right? These people actually, we gained some new fans down there. So Andy, to your original question about quarantine and coming together, we're just itching to get back out there in front of people, because every show we grow and meet people and get new fans, and we just want to keep doing that.
Well, COVID caused most venues to transition to a different type of model. In your opinion, what's something that music supporters can do to support musicians in this strange time? This can be friends, family, or just listeners.
That's a great question. I'm going to answer a little bit and then maybe kick over to JR for a little bit more commentary. One of the for better or worse, we have Spotify now, and that is one of the central areas to engage. So, our entire discography is out there. But frankly, find your medium to follow the artists you like. If you don't use Spotify, do something else. We all have friends and family who download on iTunes, who go out and work through other venues. So we try to make all of our music available wherever people want to go and consume it. But that's number one. I think number two is also engage with them. Like all of us, again, for better or worse, have social media, and we're continuously putting out updates. There are album reviews, tons of album reviews for what we just released that folks can go and consume. So, like us like your favorite bands on Facebook. But Andy, one of the things also in listening to your playlists, I absolutely love the specifically local, but just in general, like playlists that curate content to arrange bands, either from an area or from a genre or both. And you can just put it on play. If something pops up that you love, go and follow that band. But JR, I think that you and I talk about this a lot, how to keep engagement up. So what are your thoughts there?
I mean, it's a multi-tiered question. It's such a complicated thing. If you want to stream our album for free, you can just go do that. You can go on to Bandcamp on our website, and we have the whole album. So you can just listen to it there. But I think ultimately support comes down to what you're willing to do. And I would be remiss to ask for more than anyone's willing to give. I think ultimately, like what I usually tell people is buy the record, on iTunes or Bandcamp, or buy a t-shirt, all that money that comes in. And I like I said, I'm not trying to drive sales, but all that money goes right back into us recording more material. We have a band fund, we have a PayPal, it goes right into the bucket. And then we take that money and we use it to make more songs. So we don't have is it Patreon or Patreon? We don't have one of those. And we don't have any like donation links, because this is our hobby and our project, and we love doing it. And hobby is the wrong word. It's a passion more than anything. I think that does it a huge disservice. But I would say that just buy the band's material. If you dig a band, like buy their stuff, buy their shirt, wear it around. And ultimately the one that I always come back to, the biggest one, is if you really love a band, like if you really like them, it's first on your mind, tell all your friends about it. Like I can't tell you how many bands like I found over the years because one of my friends was like relentless about that band. A great example is Pablo and this band called Soen. Right now, I first heard Soen like a couple years ago when he showed them to me, and they're a Swedish prog metal band, and I liked it. I was like, that's cool, but I didn't really put it on my list. And then he just kept pestering me, like showing me new tracks, and oh, you got to check out their new release. Oh, you got to check out this new one that just came out. And it took a while, maybe I'm a stone or something, but eventually I fell in love with Soen. I was like, man, this band is dope. Their music is amazing. Their lyrics are awesome. Their hooks are great. And he laughed, Pablo will laugh and go like, I told you, you should have done it quicker. And I think that's what real fandom is. It's like saying like, I love this artist and you should too. And you're relentless about it. And I'm not saying that anybody should go out there and be relentless about Fellowcraft, but if you are, I would hope that, you tell your friends, be like, dude, you got to check out, like, this is how the world ends. Like, these guys are crazy. Can you believe this is the band that wrote Get Up Young Phoenix? You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of like, not that that's a bad song, but it's so different. That's what I do with bands. And I think that if you're a musician and you love talking about music, I would just hope that, if Fellowcraft is on your tongue, like that you would pass that to somebody else.
Yeah, and Andy, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but the evolution of bands is always fun to watch too. You listen to your favorite band's early stuff and what they're doing recently. And I don't know, that can always be fun to observe. And we love people who are along for the ride to keep in touch with what we're going to put out next.
You guys have had quite a story. What is something on the horizon for you in 2021?
It's a good question. So Pablo actually mentioned the festival in Monterrey, Mexico, not Monterey, Virginia, where I grew up, right, Pablo? That's one of the things. But I'd also like Pablo and maybe also Zach to comment on what we're doing now, because we're relentlessly writing music. because we're all in a bubble and we're getting our vaccinations finally, we're still practicing and able to write together, as opposed to, around this time last year where we had to Google Drive post however we use GarageBand on our iPads or our old computers. But maybe Pablo, you want to speak to our opportunity coming up in October, which you just did, but also maybe the writing process. And Zach, if you want to chime in, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's not really anything else to do right now, right? With the lockdowns and everything else going on. So the only thing we can do is write. Like this album that we just released was a really special album for us. It was a really big learning experience for us, and I think it really cemented the identity and the character of these new outlet, of this new personality of the band, with all four of us, which, as Jared mentioned, is distinct enough from the previous iterations of the band. And it's unfortunate that now we won't be able to go out and promote it. We tried to do as best as we could. We just did a live stream, an exclusive live stream also for the Mexico Metal Fest that is available on the festival's YouTube channel. And we did it precisely to be able to do something with the album, to be able to like perform and do a sort of like virtual album release show. And the experience was weird. In all honesty, we've already done 2 live streams during the pandemic. We did one for the Mexicaos Fest back in October, and then this one for the Mexico Metal Fest. And I have to say that I don't think I don't think we're a band that's made for live streams. Like we did them and they went well, and the feedback that we got was good. But in all honesty, it felt a little like, and I've said this before in previous interviews, it felt a little bit like not that I've ever done it, but it felt a little bit like shooting a porn video where you're supposed to be faking all of this emotion and all of this like passion that you experience at the moment, and you're not feeling it. It's just all fake. It's an empty stage with an empty room in front of you and a dude with his camera just looking at the screen and shooting at you and having no giving you nothing back. So I don't know if we'll be doing that again. I think that now we just realize that maybe, yes, in terms of promotion, this might be a lost album, but despite that, we already got a lot of traction, and we already got quite frankly a really big response to the album. We've gotten reviews and placements, and we've gotten interviews in like Danish metal magazines, and we've gotten reviews by Rock Hard Italy and some other magazines in like the Netherlands, Belgium, the UK, and the US as well. So I mean, in terms of, we did the most we could in terms of like using social media and doing like virtual promotion. We're not gonna be able to play any shows, so it's kind of gonna be a lost album in that sense. And so we just realized the only thing we can do after all of this is just to keep writing and to start prepping the next album, so that hopefully we'll be able to put out something in early 2022. Hopefully by then shows will be back, and then we'll be able to tour and meet people face to face and play those songs in front of other people, which is the only thing that it's not the only thing that matters about this experience of being in the band, but it is the most important one. So we definitely cannot wait to get back to that. We've tried all of the other alternatives, all of the virtual alternatives, and again, they just don't cut it. So we're just going to keep writing because that's what bands do.
Yeah, to Pablo's point, we love that connection with people, and I totally agree with that sentiment. There's nothing like it. I think that all the bands doing live streams in quarantine, shout out to all the technicians and sound folks, we and videographers, lighting, folks running lighting, because it is really hard to make the shot something that, something important and special without anybody else. And even while they're running the soundboard or whatever, they can't hoot and holler like you want to when you go out, have a beer and watch your favorite band. So DC9, which, you know, we had an interview there after our live stream. It's a favorite of all of ours. You know, one of my first live performances as an original band, and a very important spot for us. Then, of course, Seven Drum in the Pocket, which helped produce the live stream that's featured on the festival site, as Pablo mentioned earlier in the interview. So yeah, there's nothing like the live experience, and we want that so much to be able to connect with folks. But shout out to the venues who are still doing their best for the live streams as well.
Well, the future looks bright for you guys. I'm excited for everything that's coming forward for you. And it sounds like you have a great idea of what looks like moving forward. Is there anything else you'd like to add or like our fans to know?
I think we can maybe do a round robin on this one, starting with Zach. If you don't mind, Andy, like what is Fellowcraft is a band, and we are one, but we also have individual thoughts on this. So what do you think?
Yeah, so new album out called This Is Where You'll Find Me. That was on February 26th. You can find on Spotify. I think right now, you know, we're in the music writing process, like Pablo said, like every other band is right now. I can't imagine the content that's going to come out once COVID restrictions are lifted. It's going to be massive across the DC music scene, which is going to be really exciting. You know, we're going through the writing process. It starts with Pablo usually writing a really cool riff. Usually either myself or Brandon kind of back that up with a drum beat, or Brandon will lay down a pretty nice bass line, and we kind of play with that for a while. And then JR will is the master of his domain in the lyric department, and he brings lyrics to all of these songs, and they're all written by JR. And we all give each other kind of fun ideas about each other's instruments. JR sang a drum part that I play with on one of our new songs, and I sang a harmony that's going to be on one of the new songs too. So I would just leave it with that. We have a new album, but we're going to be writing more here in these coming months, and we can't wait to share it with everyone.
Cool. JR, parting thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. First thing, I would want your guys' fans to know that we appreciate you. It was really cool to read all the reviews that came through Alchemical. Naturally, because for what it's worth in the DC local scene, there's so much music, and with that, there's only a few outlets, and it's always tough to prioritize who you want to write about, who you can, who you have the time for. So every time I got a chance, the reason when you wrote about This Is How the World Ends, when you wrote about Last Great Scotsman, which I really enjoyed that review specifically because he talked about how it was a sequel in a sense that it was a song we had done before, but one that we had completely, changed over into something totally new. I would say thank you to anybody who's read it, followed it, done it. We got more coming. To Zach's point, it's going to be different, but better and more. We're just getting better as a band, and I'm very excited about the prospect of doing it. So stay tuned is what I'd say. Just like Zach, thank you for listening. I hope you continue to listen. If you like it, tell your friends. Stay tuned. We got some good stuff coming, and then I'm gonna keep looking for new bands to follow, and I like your site for that.
Well, you heard it here. Thank you so much, Fellowcraft, for coming on Alchemicast, and we look forward to everything that's coming out on the horizon. You can find their music on Spotify and iTunes and all streaming sites. This Is Where You'll Find Me, their latest album with 2 live takes of previous releases and 7 other tracks that you can't wait to hear. My name's Andy Reid, and you've been on the Alchemicast. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Not On down the rabbit hole. On down the rabbit hole.